So let's talk about sunscreen. It's quite a sexy topic, actually quite interesting. I want you to be able to make better choices about how to pick the best sunblock that's both safe and effective, and to know, what are you getting in average drugstore versus what you pick up in a health food store versus just making something DIY at home, and does that work? All right, so I'm going to jump in. Number one, just say this as a basic thing. The sun rays, which contain in part UV, UVA, UVB, other UVs as well, can cause both aging and wrinkling to our skin as well as cancer. There's two UV types that are of main concern, UVA and UVB. And this is important actually to know. But before I get into that, it's not just the UVA and UVB themselves, but it's how long are we exposed to them, what time of day. So of course the times of day that are worse, and where do we live, which you're probably aware of that because some of us are exposed all year round to the sun. Okay, so there's a little bit of difference though with UVA and UVB in terms of indoors, outdoors, and time of year, but I don't want to bog you down with too many details. But I will tell you that the UVB rays cannot get through windows and so won't bother you, but UVA can. So what's the difference between them? Easy way to remember, UVB for burn is typically more the type of UV that's going to cause tanning or burning or even blistering. UVA, A for aging, penetrates deeper into our skin and can cause more of that damage that causes aging to the skin and wrinkles, but both of them, based on current evidence, can lead to cancer. And the reason this is important is because we are all very focused on that SPF, that number on our sunblock, but SPF only protects us against UVB. And so that's kind of in the older or former years, we didn't know about the risks of the UVA. Nowadays we do, we have more evidence, so we are looking for a sunscreen that has more of what we call full spectrum protection. So the problem with the SPFs, one of the problems in terms of marketing right now, is that companies may brag about the fact that their SPF is so high, some going extremely high, over 50 to 100, and that can give us a false sense of security, because actually the higher the SPF goes, the lower the protection for the UVA. So the regulatory bodies like the FDA are kind of trying to discourage companies from advertising so those higher amounts. That's one issue. I typically just go for about 30 block. Okay, so that's the one thing. So don't necessarily think because it's so high you have full protection. Okay, what about sunscreen? So there's two kind of broad categories of sunscreens in terms of how they work. There are those that work through chemicals, kind of a chemistry or reaction on your body, and there are those that work just by reflecting the sun, so that's more of a physical way, a physical type of barrier. Okay, so in terms of, I'm going to talk about the chemicals briefly first. So there's a lot of different chemicals that are used, although one of the most common ones that you'll see in, say if you go into the drugstore, is oxybenzone. So there's a number of issues with the chemical ones. Now a great website for way more details than I can give here is the Environmental Working Group website. They will evaluate chemicals of many ingredients, foods, cosmetics, cleaning products, and they rate those chemicals in terms of safety, and it's the best website I've come across for that. So they reviewed 1,300 products in terms of sunscreens, and this is their updated version, and only 1/4 of those provided adequate protection. And by that, it's usually the issue is they're maybe protecting us against UVB, but not UVA. And only 1/4 of them did not contain concerning ingredients. So many of those chemical type of barriers, they rate quite low in terms of their safety. Okay, so that's that. Another issue though, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave that for a second. Let's talk about, okay, so there's the ingredients that provide more of a physical barrier. And there are two primarily, you're probably familiar with them: zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. If you go into a health food store and pick up sunscreen, you're most likely to see one of those two as the active ingredients. So as I said, those just reflect the sun away. So what about them? Now, I have this lovely, you see this chart here. Now it doesn't show all of the different types of chemical sunblocks, but one of the main issues with many of the chemical-based ones, as you can see here, is that they provide UVB protection, but very little in the way of UVA. Whereas if you look here, zinc oxide is the most balanced. It provides protection for good protection for both UVA and UVB. Titanium dioxide fares a lot better as well than many of the chemical ones, but not as good as zinc oxide. So the big reveal, but I still have more to say, is those two are my favorite in terms of, both safety and efficacy. But they are not without their controversy either. Especially talked about is the zinc oxide, that it's made of nanoparticles, very small particles, the worry that it can penetrate our skin. Now with regards to many of the chemical-based ones, a lot of them do penetrate our skin, and this is again from the FDA-based information. One of the most common chemical ingredients is known to be found in our bloodstream, and the FDA says if you cross this threshold of entering the body, sort of then you need to have extra tests, and they have called for that, and there are many ingredients that do. And this one here, oxybenzone, again, that's a biggie. Okay, so with regards to zinc oxide, recent studies showed on humans, small studies, but quite reassured me for the most part that it doesn't really seem to penetrate into our body as is worry out there. So I think overall, in comparison to others, it seems to be much safer, and probably the safest, and definitely great in terms of efficacy. But there's a caveat to that for both of these, or for any of these, and that's when you're going to be spraying your sunblock, or using it in a powder form, say in makeup, that you can inhale. Now the issue with that is we don't know the safety of inhaling these ingredients, and nanoparticles inhaled into the lungs could potentially be damaging. So I discourage anybody always from spraying most things into the air, whether it's air fresheners or any kind of cosmetics. Spraying things is, we really have poor safety standards, in my opinion, when it comes to ingredients, especially in cosmetics. It's better for food, still not great, but definitely worse for cosmetics. So you don't want to spray stuff into the air where you can inhale it. Lastly, okay, so natural ingredients. So I think what I've said, the bottom line is zinc oxide is my favorite. I know it does make you look kind of white, and to me that's not a big deal, because at least I know that it's providing safety. So in terms of the natural stuff, now I know you can't see this little chart here, but there are things such that provide some natural SPF. Now this is just the SPF, such as peppermint essential oil, olive oil, coconut oil, lemongrass essential oil, castor oil, lavender essential oil, almond oil, orange eucalyptus, so the list goes on. They provide some natural SPFs. Not much in the way of the protection for UVA. The issue with these is that, so peppermint comes out highest there, and the SPF protection for it is only about 7. So you can use these, but you must know that they are not a replacement for sunblock in any way. just remembered something that I want to circle back to about actually zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. Another advantage of those is that when you put them on, they work immediately because they're just blocking and deflecting, whereas the chemical-based ones take up to 20 minutes. So that's another advantage, that if you're out with your kids and you forgot to apply and you have it on, you just put it on and it's working right away, and apparently they last on the whole longer as well. Okay, so back to the natural one. So if you want to take some coconut, add some essential oils into it and put it on, that's fine, but again, realize that it's not a replacement for a sunblock. So I would do that if I'm going out, say in the late afternoon when the sun is not as strong and I'm going for, maybe out for a 15-minute walk or something. That's when I could potentially do something like that, but that would never protect me if I'm going out for a long period of time in the middle of the day where there's a lot of heat. I would probably burn. So it's just knowing what it does and doesn't do, rather than just saying it's good or bad. And that's it. So hopefully I covered everything that you might want to know. If you have additional information or if you've heard otherwise, please comment. Certainly there's a lot of incomplete science and controversies over many things around sunblocks, so I'm open to hearing about things that you have heard, and I hope you found that helpful. Thanks.